Hello everyone, Anahita Rao here today speaking about the upcoming eclipses in July. So I know that many of us are probably feeling the heaviness in the sky right now with everything going on with the planetary conjunctions and the planetary wars, etc. The eclipses are going to basically jumpstart this energy and activate the Gemini-Sagittarius axis even more, so that whatever does need to manifest in our life will do so very quickly, very suddenly. So I will discuss the eclipses, and rest assured by August we will all be feeling a lot lighter and perhaps have more clarity and perhaps have a lot more optimism about life, particularly when Jupiter goes direct in August. So for those who have yet to subscribe, please do so by hitting the hand button on the right hand side, and as usual feel free to write your comments. Let's get started. Thank you, folks. Okay, so let's talk about the solar eclipse happening on July the 2nd in the nakshatra of Ardra. Now, the thing to remember, and this is something that I mention regularly with eclipses, is that you have to keep in mind that every 8 to 9 years, we're going to have an eclipse that will affect you very personally, because it's going to either touch your moon sign, your sun sign, or your ascendant degree. Now, some eclipses are more intense than others, so their impact lasts longer, but generally there's a 6-month window to notice and to make changes. One thing I always advise is don't make any decisions the week before or the week after eclipses. It's best to reflect at this time, if possible. In fact, the strong energy at this time is great for any sort of spiritual practice. All eclipses are intense, of course. The impact is more sober if Rahu and Ketu are positioned well, as then we can expect them to behave much better. They are positioned well at this time, but unfortunately they're also connecting with so many other planets. And whenever you've got conjunctions, the energy of a particular planet is no longer that quality. It gets obscured. So whenever you've got Rahu and Sun in Gemini, it's no longer Rahu in Gemini, and it's no longer Sun in Gemini. Now it's Rahu and Sun in Gemini, so that's quite a different thing. The eclipse, this one is caused by Rahu, who's about 7 degrees away from the luminaries, the Sun and Moon. The eclipse takes place on July the 2nd at approximately 8 p.m. GMT. It takes place in the nakshatra of Ardra at 16 degrees in the 3rd pada, which is Aquarius Navamsha, again ruled by Saturn and Rahu. Ardra is an intense nakshatra where this eclipse takes place. So you could probably have some chaos and confusion in some area of your life come up, particularly that area that is connected to Gemini. Ardra supports the following activities: destruction, confrontation, tearing down structures, managing difficult situations, getting rid of old things, breaking bad habits. So if you want to quit smoking at this time, or if you want to quit, it could be any habit that you want to change. Perhaps you sleep in every day and you want to change that. Or it could be that you eat too much. Then it would, again, be a good time to put in place a diet. Addressing any kinds of problems. So confronting problems and addressing problems is very much encouraged by Ardra, rather than shunning them or running away from them. Just take them on, head on. Dissolving any kind of negativity. Because remember, whenever you've got that destructive force very strong in your life, and you go through the actions, or maybe you don't do anything, and yet ultimately you are in that destructive frame because you are being forced to act, or others are acting and you're on the receiving end. Whenever you go through that sort of that phase, I want to call it, it's very important to dissolve that negativity. I'm not saying don't go through that phase, because many times it's necessary, especially with the eclipse happening there. And as I said, with Ardra supporting destruction and tearing down old structures, don't be shy about doing that, and don't hesitate to do that. But remember, with the aftermath of it, when you're dealing with the destruction in front of you, then make sure you have something in place in your life so that you can dissolve that. Yeah. Now, Saturn and Rahu both figure very prominently at this eclipse, as they will in the July 16th one. So again, relationships are bound to change here. Even more so confirmed with the sobering aspect of Saturn opposing Venus. You've got a Saturn opposition with Venus here, but you've got a much stronger Saturn opposition with Venus in the July 16th eclipse. So that same pattern is repeating. You may feel disconnected from others as well, because this can cause a bit of loneliness, you might feel aloof. And especially if you're Gemini or Sagittarius, but also those who have personal planets in the eclipse degree or close to the eclipse degree. You'll have to revisit and reassess the areas signified by Rahu and Saturn in your chart, as well as the houses signified by Gemini and Sagittarius. And with Saturn retrograde so closely aspecting Rahu, you'll have to return to an earlier problem or issue and finally close a chapter. Part of the reason Rahu is moving through Punarvasu. Again, we're talking about the moon being in Ardra. So here you can experience a lot of mental activity, a wavering mind, and some confusion too. Of course, the highest level of Ardra is cleansing, as I mentioned, destroying old structures that are no longer valid, which is very good. Now with the cleansing, you'll have the opportunity to remove everything that is outdated in your life, once and for all. Even old thoughts that have been holding you back. This is a fantastic opportunity to let them go. Make a conscious effort to do that. This is an extremely sensitive nakshatra, so you really have to pay attention to your thoughts and emotions here, as there may be a lot of negative activity happening. This is certainly not a good time to initiate anything new, even though it is a solar eclipse. I would say wait to do that in August. Even better in September. If you're a dual sign, Pisces, Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, you're going to feel this eclipse very much directly, as it's going to affect one of the core areas of your life. Again, the 1, 4, 7, 10 axis. Could be yourself, could be your home, could be your career, could be your relationships. Everyone's going to feel its impact because as part of the collective, we're impacted by the energy that surrounds us. So even if you have nothing in Gemini and Sagittarius, no planets, no nodal points, your ascendant isn't there, and it doesn't impact your core houses, as I mentioned, doesn't matter. For one thing, your Lagna Lord will be impacted because it's playing a part in the eclipse. And for another thing, even if you don't feel it at all, and even if you don't feel any impact in your life, even if you don't see any changes in your life, just the collective energy at this time is going to be negative, and it's going to be very much sort of pessimistic. And so just be mindful of that. I mean, don't sort of take it sort of personally. In other words, sometimes we feel this way and we think that this is a sign to make some changes in our life, but actually we don't need to make the changes because it's just the collective energy that is so, the prana is very, very, very low. So how do you increase your prana? You do spiritual practice every day. I mean, again, it comes back to that. How do you deal with eclipses? You do spiritual practice every day, and especially the week before and the week after the eclipse, because that is when the energy is the strongest. So expect to feel a bit tense, a bit chaotic, maybe sad, maybe restless, maybe just down. But know that it's going to pass very soon, and it's very, very much it's very much something that you can manage with some kind of practice in your life. And again, try to postpone the major decisions. If you cannot, then just know that perhaps the decisions that you do make will have to be revisited later, because sometimes we're compelled to act. And we take an action because we don't have a choice. And you may have to do that, which is fine, but just know that it may be an area that will sort of come back to you, and you may have to revisit. And when would that be? That would probably be in December, because the eclipse, this axis gets activated again. So let's take an example here. Let's say you're a Virgo Lagna. Then Saturn is your 6th lord, and the eclipse is taking place in your 10th house in Sag. So career matters could take a sudden twist or turn, and your daily life structures could also get disrupted because of the 6th house signification. Or you could be a Gemini Lagna, and Saturn is your 8th lord transiting in your 7th house, meaning all matters related to relationships could undergo a big and sudden change. That could also mean meeting someone at this time. It doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily end. But if you are meeting someone at this time and you are giving a relationship a go, then go very, very slowly, I would say. The way others are perceiving you could also be in a negative or challenging light here. With Ketu's presence, an ending could come up quite suddenly and unexpectedly in the area of relationships for Geminis. This is a difficult eclipse, as other planets are also not well placed and therefore cannot offer the balance or the support. So I would say resist making big changes unless it's absolutely necessary. As I said, we don't always have the luxury to do nothing around eclipse periods. Sometimes we're compelled to act due to others and due to circumstances beyond our control. So here I would suggest do a lot of reflection if possible, and understand that perhaps the action that you take will need to be reassessed again later down the road, as it may not have a solid and sound foundation or even clear thinking behind it. So when would it come up again? Perhaps at the eclipse in December, when the same points are getting activated. So I'm going to be posting a detailed monthly forecast about this on my website as usual, so you can have a read on that too. And feel free to subscribe to it. Thank you, folks.